Okay, so I'm just gonna keep on. This one was working out, and then it kind of broke. Um, but I'm gonna let it sit just like that, I guess. Um, so I guess I'll tell a story while I'm working. Hopefully, I'll make sense. I should make sense. Hopefully, I just don't ruin what I'm trying to work on here. That's all. So I'll tell the story about the first time I ever experienced the power of Jesus Christ. And I was probably about 17 years old. I'd been going to a boarding school in Mount Edgecombe High School here in Alaska. I'd been homeschooled out in the bush until I was through 10th grade. And boy, this thing, I just need to, nope, very hard to get this stuff in. Anyways, um, yeah, I know I can do it. I just should have got the little while they're green invention. Is what I should have done. Maybe I'm trying to do things the wrong way here. Maybe just make a circle out of it. Okay, so I was about 17 in Husley, and I'd been going to school in Mount Edgecombe High School. And my brother Vaughn, who was the next oldest brother in my family, he's about 4.5 years older than me. Me and him are really close. And well, he committed suicide when I was about 17 years old, and I hadn't seen him for about a year before then because he had gone off on an kind of like a partying escapade with one of the siblings down to lower 48s and had gotten lost and all kinds of trouble down there and nearly died. And so we finally found him and got him back to Fairbanks, and now he had gone out in the wilderness with my parents. He was third party to them because he was in trouble with the law. While he was out there, he committed suicide. It was a very tragic story. He took his hit off with a 12 gauge shotgun that was sawed off. And so it was closed coffin, closed casket, as they call it. So the casket, you obviously can't show the body because it was all obliterated. And so he really hurt me that way because I was sitting at the funeral in Houston. I was 17 years old, and I hadn't seen him for about a year, like I said before then. And I, uh, I was just having, I guess you can say I was having a very close to having a nervous breakdown there uh, in the hall, the community hall in Houston. And um, that's where the body was, and the service and all that is held. And so I was sitting up front with the casket and had family members around me, and we were all sad, and we were being, you know, it's 3 days of viewing the body and stuff too. I mean, the casket, 3 days of activities and stuff, and funeral processions, and so it was like the second day or something like that, and I was just having a hard time gripping reality there because I didn't get to see him to say goodbye, and that was the toughest part because for all I knew, he could have been still down the lower 48 somewhere. And who am I to guarantee that this is my brother Vaughn inside of the casket, you know? And so I heard my battery. I need to go plug in my phone here. Hold on a second. Bear with me. So I was sitting watching this casket, this empty casket, and feeling pretty 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 confused, I guess, at the time. Like I started to lose grip of reality, almost like not really lose grip of reality, but I was like, what's I was having a hard time coming to grips. It's very difficult to say goodbye to somebody if you don't get to see them, at least see their body. And so I started to shake. First time in my life, I was just sitting there shaking a little bit. I was like having a hard time. Like it was really hard for me to accept that he was in that casket. I don't know why, but it was very difficult. And I started to shake. And now, like I said, we were all raised out in the woods, so I haven't spent a lot of time in Huslia, but there was an elder in Huslia who always looked out for me for some reason. She was like my guardian angel of an elder who I didn't know very well because she wasn't my grandma. She was like my great aunt. Her name was Madeline Durendoff. And she's gone now a long time ago. Even then, she was so old, she was blind and, for all intents and purposes, deaf. And so she couldn't see. She could barely see right in front of her. And she was in the hall. She was sitting around the outside of the hall while the closest family members were sitting close to the casket. And I remember my cousin Josephine came up to me while I was starting to shake really hard, and she said, uh, "Grandma, Grandma Madeline, she told you to come. She wants to pray for you." And now that was the first cue that I had, like, oh, something. This interesting a little bit. Like I always took people's suggestions though, especially if it's my elder. And so I said, okay. So I went up to the side, and now Madeline was sitting at least 30 yards away from me against the side of the hall, so she couldn't see me, she couldn't hear me, and there was a lot of people in the hall too, and everything going on. And so I don't know how she knew that I was having a breakdown there, that I really needed God, I needed to be saved because I was starting to lose it a little bit, and so that's what impressed me at the moment. It was like, whoa, she knows something's going on with me because I didn't know what was going on with me. I was scared. I was wondering what the heck was going on with me because I was starting to shake, and I never had that happen before. So the fact that she was calling me over was like, whoa, something is going on here. I don't know what's going on, but something's going on. And so, sure enough, she called and she said, I want to pray for you. And here, I'm going to bless this water. She said she had a bottle of water, and she had a styrofoam cup, empty one. She opened that bottle of water, and she poured the water, some of it, into that styrofoam cup. And she prayed in her native tongue. And then she also prayed in English, and she said something like, bless this water in the name of the Father, the Mother, the Holy Ghost, something like that. She blessed it righteously. And here she gave it to me. She couldn't even see. I took it from her. I drank it, and it was like cool. It was like just this cool breath of fresh air from head to toe through my whole body, and all that shaking, all that worry, everything just melted away. Later in life, I got dehydrated. I think from stomach botulism one time, and I almost died. And I had to have an IV. And when they put that IV into my body, because that had been not able to hold things down for so long, I remember how it felt going through my veins. That water when they gave me an IV, that's what it felt like from head to toe, though. From head to toe, just all melted away. And I'd already been pretty religious at the time. I'd always been looking for God, and I didn't know at the time much about Jesus at all. But that was my first experience. Saved me right there, and you know kept me from nervous breakdown. And it was amazing that that woman knew, being blind and deaf, 30 yards away from me, knew what I was going through, and knew that that was the moment she needed to pray for me, and bless that water and give it to me. All those years that I came into Husa from out to camp, she always wanted me to visit her. And when I visited her, one thing I liked about her the most, I guess, is she didn't want me to visit too long. I guess, like, she just wanted to check on me and say hi, and then she'd be okay, okay, and then I'd leave. Whereas some other elders, they want to entertain you for a long time, or they want you to entertain them for a long time, or it's a little awkward. Maybe they try too hard or something. I don't know. But Grandma Madeline, every time I visit her, I remember when I was in town though, I'd hear it from other people. They say, Grandma Madeline, she said to go visit you, visit her. I'd hear it all the time. Every time I came to town, you bet she was always go visit her one time, and then I'd visit her, and it was always short visits. She'd just give me a little money or something. That's all, and say hi. She always gave me money or candy. That was it. She'd tell me, "Okay, bye bye. I'm doing good. Okay, bye." You know. And then when it came down to it, she saved my life right there. All those years, she was like she's waiting for that one opportunity. Yeah. Mm. Then I'll just finish, I guess, with the next experience that I had with Christ, and this was when I was 19 years old. Um, the first time, I was probably about 17. So about 2 years later, I didn't go back to school in Mount Edgecombe. I should have gotten therapy and counseling and went back, but I was too afraid of crying in front of people or something. So my mom and dad gave me the choice whether I wanted to go back or not, and I opted not to. I always wish I had, because I let that my brother Vaughn's death get me pretty good over the years. It really put a stumbling block between me and the Lord, because I put so much pain in my heart that for me to accept Christ, and when I got close to God, real close to God, uh, His grace was so beautiful, and uh, uh, we have need to rejoice so much for what He offers, and we're going to rejoice so much in the end that it's hard to like. It was hard for me to accept, to take it all off and give it to Him. I was so locked up in the grief. It was like I couldn't give it up. Like I couldn't, like taking that grief off and handing it over to God and saying, "Here, I can't take this. This is not mine anymore." To me, it almost like abandoned all of the meaning of all of this turmoil and pain that I was feeling. It was almost like saying it wasn't anything, or it wasn't worth anything or something. Almost like like Manchester syndrome or something like that, where people get abused so bad that they get hooked on the abuse. That's how I felt with me, because he hurt me so much like that, and I was hurt so bad by his suicide and not being able to say goodbye to him, and me being so proud of him. I couldn't let go of that abuse that I had felt from the devil. It was like I couldn't let it go. I wanted to nourish it, and the only way I could nourish it is to hold on to it and not give it up to God. So it really kept me from progressing in my walk with Christ after that for a while. And it kind of does that even to this day a little bit, I got to admit. And it's hard for me to give all that up, but I think I have uh, a lot to with that the way I got hurt with my brother Vaughn. Um, but at the time, this was about when I was 19. This is 2 years later. I was living in Hoosleigh. I lived in Fairbanks for a little while, and I went back to Hoosleigh. I was out to camp with my parents, helping them with wood and water. But it was coming. Uh, it was summertime, and I was supposed to be spending my first summer away from camp and kind of spreading my wings. And so that's kind of what I was doing in Hoosleigh, because I didn't know where else to go. I was trying to. My parents were living out in the camp, and I was finally living in Hoosleigh by myself for once, and it wasn't going so well. Unfortunately, I was experiencing a severe spiritual attack, as a lot of my buddies in Hoosleigh had experienced too. I lost a lot of good friends there to suicide, and they had been. They got caught in between they got caught in a warfare between good and evil, unfortunately, and a lot of the some of the elders in the community were protecting their own kids or whatever was going on. Actually, I don't speak for that. Like I said, it was just devil's playground. Anyways, a lot of my uh, elders were coming down hard on young kids and teenagers, and there was a lot of suicide. And I ended up getting caught into that web where you know a certain elder was calling me up every day, telling me that I'm worthless, that I need to get out of town, that I'm no good, I'm never going to amount to anything. And he had been the same elder that had told one of my previous friends who committed suicide that he should just kill himself. And 2 months later, after he told me what he had been hearing from his elders, he did kill himself. And the same elder was after me to and uh, and it. I made it easy just because I wasn't blameless and I was managing to get into a little bit of trouble just enough to keep under the chopping axe and on the blame and for about everything. And it was early in the morning, like morning number Z, that I was getting called up and told, bitched up by this person early, told I'm worthless. And I started to almost lose my identity for a second there because at first I thought it was maybe he was telling the truth and maybe other people were telling the truth that was coming down hard on me, that I am a piece of junk or something like that. And uh, and and if that's the case, I could change. I could accept that if I knew it was true. But I started to realize that, man, this behavior they're demonstrating, this is from an elder, and they're saying some really awful stuff. Maybe it's once I realized that it was the ones that I was really striving to live up to, the ones I cared the most about, that were actually really bad. I started to shake at that point again. I was like, the second time I started to almost have a nervous breakdown. Like at 19 years old, I was in. It was middle, like early summer, and I was sitting in our house in Husley, and it was a log cabin. I had a wood stove in front of me. I was sitting on a bed like this, and I was sitting there, started to shake because I was like, man, it was hard for me to accept that even the people that I was, my whole community, the people I was living up to, trying to be good for, that they were really, really bad, devil bad, and that there was nothing good to gain from them, and that I had been living up to the wrong people. That's when I started to kind of lose my identity, and that's how I started to understand what a lot of my friends, my teen friends, had gone through before they committed suicide. Is that they realized it wasn't them, and it was their whole surrounding. It was just ghastly, ghostly, pale country. And that is a lot of our country is actually pretty desolate. It's kind of a desolate landscape out here in Fairbanks and even in our native communities, and in Alaska in general. A lot of places I see. I don't know if it's like that all over the world. I imagine it probably is in a lot of places, if not all places. But it is a pretty desolate wasteland when it comes to good people with the right intentions and hope. A lot of times, a lot of it, I pray, is just the devil wanting us to think that. But there's always hope. There's always light, and I'll tell you the rest of the story on that note. So I was sitting there on the bed, and I started to shake again, and I was shaking, and then all of a sudden, on my right side, now the wall was about here to the camera away from me, and there was a stove right here, and where the camera is now, there was a wooden trunk, old wooden trunk, and on top of that trunk, I materialized out of thin air. There was a cross about that tall, and on that cross was the figure of Jesus Christ. And at the time, to this day, I believe it was Jesus Christ on the cross. At the time when I seen it, because I was 19, I hadn't had a lot of exposure to Christianity, or to even know the story of Jesus completely, or how it intertwined with the God the Father and so on, and the Holy Ghost. I didn't know much, and I just knew about Mother Mary and the Virgin Birth. I knew that story a little bit, and so I thought it was Mother Mary on the cross, because this figure, it was as bright as the camera is seeing me right now. I mean, it was brighter than that. It was what I saw was a golden cross about that tall, and a figure on it that was dressed in a white robe, maybe a little bit of blue sash or something, maybe long long golden hair, um, golden hair, and a fair complexion. I look almost like the Mona Lisa, and the smile, like a Mona Lisa smile, is what I'd always describe it as, was a Mona Lisa smile, almost to the point where sometimes I wonder if that was Da Vinci's model. But this figure was on the cross, hid sideways, no nails in the hands or nothing like that. It was just a figure on the cross with arms outstretched, and the cross, golden cross, and behind it just a radiating golden light. I mean, golden, so much so that the whole thing was illuminated with this beautiful golden light. But it didn't. There was no source. It was just the whole thing glowed from behind with this light that was just radiating. sideways a little bit. It wasn't animate, but it was alive. You know, this was Christ on the cross alive. And at the time, like I said, I thought it was Mother Mary. And for a long time, years, I thought it was Mother Mary on the cross, and I actually described it as such until later on in life, I seen a depiction of Christ. And, I don't know, we all look different at different times, and he could have been depicted many different ways, but I seen him depicted before that I was like, came to me, I was like, that was Christ on the cross. He just had long, long, long white robes that almost looked like a dress. That was the dress back in the day. So I assumed it was a dress, and because his complexion was so fair, I mean, it was heavenly. It was almost like a baby's complexion, the face and everything, almost like baby cheeks, and very fair. But later on, I realized, okay, this was Jesus Christ on the cross that I saw, and it was so warming. At first it was just like, and it was just warmed me up completely. Like I was like total at peace. No exclamation in my head. Not like, what am I seeing? Nothing like that. It was just total, total, total calmness. Total calmness and pretty much absent of thought. And and then from up here, now there, you know, I was looking here, and then up here, this it wasn't a voice. It was a mental telepathy, a mental form of communication that came through to me that was so much more pure, so much more understood, so much more of a two-way form of communication, so much more of a complete form of communication that words could have never ever been so pure. It was word for word communication, but it wasn't actual audible sound. It was in the brain. And this voice came through. I would call it a voice, but like I said, it wasn't audible, and it was far more complete. And it just communicated, and I believe that was God Himself, or Jesus Christ, His voice, whatever. I believe. I was seeing Christ on the cross here, and then this thing came through here, and it just beamed this knowledge into my brain through word for word, really. And I can't recite it exactly. It was so long ago, but it was, and plus it was so much, and it came through so much faster than words could. But it was just knowledge that, it said, he said, no matter what happens in this life, no matter how much hard times, how much turmoil, how much grief, how much remorse you go through, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. And now, I don't know what that means exactly. It doesn't matter, but that's what it told me. That's what he told me is it doesn't matter. The more you suffer on this earth, the more hard times you have, the more you cry, the more you feel pain, the more you hurt, then that's the more you are going to rejoice in the end. And that is the truth that I got during that instant is that no matter what, no matter what happens, even if you're nailed on the cross, for instance, you are going to rejoice that much more in the end. And that was that. And from that I could glean a lot of meaning. All of my life, that's actually saved my life over and over and over again. Because I've never had to hear his voice again like that. I just had to hear his voice one time like that. And I know it's real, and I know it's true. And I know it's for each and every one of us that believe in Christ. And that's the truth. And I'm thank God that I had that experience. And I thank God that I can share it. I pray, God, that I will share it, that you'll hear it, and you'll know that you're not the only one out there. And that I know I'm not the only one out here also. And I know I'm not. And even if I was, it doesn't matter. Because I'll rejoice that much in the end. And I pray, God, we all rejoice together. I pray we can all be saved. But I don't know any of that. And I don't know if I should even be praying that. But that's my prayer. I pray that we can all be saved. And I pray that, this video will reach somebody that if you haven't had an experience like this, or if you've had a similar one, or if you've had the same, regardless, that this will strike a chord with you and that it'll bring some clarity and understanding to life. Because if anything, you know, we need each other, and if anything, we need Christ. He's all we need, and we just need Christ. And you know, the Bible is a wonderful tool, and anything can be a wonderful tool if you pray. And that's how I get my inspiration. That's how I get my breath. And you know, when God spoke to me and gave me that message, um, it too was like a cool drink of water went through me. Same thing from head to toe. I remember that part. Is all that shaking, all that worry, and everything just went. It melted right away from me. And you know, that doesn't mean that I jumped up and obviously I didn't go charging off to the Milky White Way with the cross on my shoulder or above my head or anything. I went through very much more strife after them years. You know, I've always been dealing with one thing after another. In fact, I might testify that after that fact, you know, I was further tested the next day, and that I lost. I I was tested and I lost. Then very next day I could have been. I don't know. You know, I know I did change my course in life a little bit. Somebody called me up and paid my way to Fairbanks and I went to work for him and so on. But I had many years of failing test after test after that. And even when, especially when I didn't know I was being tested and I thought none of this, I just forgot this existed a little bit, you know. Like I said, I was still dealing with remorse for my brother Vaughn's death, and that was still a fresh open wound and a deep one. And I dreamt of him for years after that. And every time I dream about him, he's still alive. He's still out there. He's been out there all this time, and he didn't, he didn't really bother to tell me he was still alive. That's how I always dream, and it really shook me up all these years. I don't dream like that anymore, though. But you know, it really caused a rift between me and Christ, and so, anyways, I know this is a long video, but I'm gonna post it anyways. I hope somebody watches it, you know, and maybe someday I'll trim it down or something like that. But this is definitely the first time I've testified about that experience on some kind of a public platform like this. I've told the story several times in church and when I was in jail, uh, like um, around the time that I had the experience in the preacher that told me about the whole Satan crew and, and his experience with them. You know, I was able to testify in church about that time, and I told the story to a few people, but it is 100% true, and it happened to me, and you know, you could take it from there, however you want it. I know it saved my life, and it saved my life all the time because I know what he said was true. And I've always like, there's times in my life where I asked for signs to be certain and this and that, but I feel really bad about that, and I have to ask for forgiveness for that because you know I'm lucky to have had a message brought to me like that and a vision like that for Christ Himself to manifest in front of me for me and to save me like that. I'm very fortunate, and I should even feel guilty about, you know, the amount of failures I've had afterwards. But I think that's part of the testimony here too, is that you know, even with that kind of a message, even with that kind of a certainty given to me, which most people, you know, haven't had that opportunity or that luxury to have that kind of a reassurance. You know, I still failed miserably all my life, and so you know, everything for a reason. All roads lead to here, and I pray, you know, that this is going to strike a chord with you and help you anyways. Maybe it'll save your life, and if it just saves one life, then that might be the one life that saves the next and the next and the next. That saves all of humanity, you know. So, anyways, be bold, be brave. Know that fear is always going to strike your heart, but that courage and wisdom is courage is what it'll take to get through it, and wisdom is something that you're going to gain from from being able to accomplish that. So I pray I'll gain a lot of wisdom, and you know, not too much knowledge before wisdom though, because man, knowledge has a way of just sucking you down and drying you out. So take it from me, I'm an engineer, and all the knowledge in the world can be a curse in a sense. And you definitely want the wisdom and the hope and the faith before you end up with all that knowledge, because you could be left hung out to dry otherwise. And so keep your faith up, and know that we're always going to be feeling fear. There is no escape from ever feeling fear. It's because we're human. We're gonna fail, and when we fail, the devil's gonna strike fear in our hearts, and it's gonna take a lot of faith and courage to be able to stand up. And so I pray that I could post this, and I'm not gonna keep my lips zipped about saying, "Oh, don't mention the cult," or "Oh, don't mention Satanism," or whatever, whatever they call themselves, or you know, if you ain't working for Christ, if you ain't on His side, then you're against Him. That's the bottom line. You're either with Him or against God. All right. Well, I pray I can get some sleep here. I need to go soak these in water overnight. I tried to bend some of them around here, but it's just not really working out. So I'm going to try this method. Trim them on one side so they'll soak up a little more water and be able to bend them. Otherwise, I'll have to go and get green willows that are frozen and thaw them out. Or I could use roots, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. And obviously, this isn't the cat I was trying to skin here. The cat that I was trying to skin hopefully just got skunned. All right, thank you, mate. Love you all.